I guess it goes back to like April last year when we went into, we were in lockdown. And we found that our methodology of PPI was basically became redundant overnight. And also, even though regulations hadn't changed in what we needed to do to get clinical trials approved, we noticed that there'd been a dramatic decrease in patient involvement. So we mobilised the COVID-19 task force for the first time, bringing people together who had an extreme wealth of experience and expertise to ensure that the patient voice was really at the forefront and centre of all of these trials. So they really came together and they were having to review studies, as you can imagine, in a much quicker pace than we ever had to before, as we were having to respond much more rapidly than we ever had to before. So they really stepped up and were very responsive and also extremely valuable in ensuring that these studies did have that input.
How quickly did the volunteers manage to adapt to working online?
Well, it's certainly been a journey, as it has been for everyone. To be honest, I'm sure we're all still learning and adapting. But yes, as I mentioned, our methodology for patient involvement traditionally is face-to-face. We like to be out in the community. We like to hold our sessions in groups, whereas obviously, with the restrictions that were in place, all of that became redundant. What we did is try to personalise it as much as we can to each individual. So we ensured that no one was being left out. We were being as inclusive as possible. And we did do a survey about what our patient contributors, what platforms they would prefer, what methods they would prefer. And predominantly, they much preferred Zoom, the Zoom platform. But also we ensured that we were offering them alternatives. Interesting to see a power balance shift. So some of our researchers who have attended our online sessions via Zoom have in fact been taught by our patient representatives on how best to use the technology. So it's a very interesting dynamic. And in fact, some of our patient representatives have commented that they feel more empowered online, as we're all kind of seeing into each other's homes. It adds a little bit more of a personal effect.
Why is it so important to get the voice of the patient and public into these COVID-19 studies during the pandemic?
Well, I guess it's the mantra that there's no research about me without me. And that runs through all research or clinical research that's conducted, whereas especially for this research, for COVID-19 research, with it being so urgent, with the urgent public health COVID trials, without the voice of the patients, we don't know whether these trials are really what is most important to our patient populations. We don't know whether they're answering the right questions. And we also don't know if they're being designed in the most appropriate way. So, for example, are the treatment schedules feasible for these patients? So really, it's about ensuring that these research studies are designed to be as successful as they can be, also in regards to recruitment and retention of these patients. In a nutshell, I could probably talk about that for ages.
Do you think the new ways of working you had to adapt, you're forced to adapt, has improved PPI at all? Or is it just a different way of doing the same thing? Have you learned things during the pandemic?
There are no geographical boundaries anymore. And this was a problem if we were meeting face-to-face, as obviously some people are unable to travel. So at the moment with online working, we actually have been able to involve people not only further afield than Nottinghamshire, but across the UK and actually internationally as well. So it's actually meant that it can be more inclusive and you can get a wider breadth of patient involvement. We've actually done a lot more involvement activities because we can be really flexible around people's already busy lives, especially as we've been moving, as restrictions have started to ease and people have been getting back to their normal day-to-day activities. There has definitely been a plethora of benefits.
So what do you feel most proud of, Kate, thinking of that period, say from March 2020 through to March 2021?
Oh, crikey. I'm proud of every single member of the task force. Despite such challenging time, it seems to have catalysed a lot of other initiatives. So, for example, our research volunteer initiative, we have had our research volunteers supporting the delivery of the new vaccine study. at the treatment centre for the first time, supporting the delivery of research studies alongside our clinical research facility team. And it was quite a moment to see our research volunteers communicating with the team, learning about the study firsthand from our research nurses, our practitioners, our lab staff. That's exactly what the research volunteer role was about creating that cohesion, and our patient contributors working with our delivery teams, and also to help improve the participant experience. So speaking to our participants, reassuring them, being that friendly face, and just having those initial conversations with them to put them at ease at the beginning of their visit.
What are your hopes for the research volunteers? What can they achieve?
I believe we're very good at involving patients in the design of clinical trials. But what we haven't done today is actually get them involved in the delivery of those trials. So a lot of patients are very eager to learn more about how clinical research is delivered on the ground within our trust and our centres of excellence. And I really hope that this will mean that they are able to come into the hospital or to go out into the community and raise awareness of research, learn more about research, and actually build those relationships with our research delivery teams as well.
Just thinking back to that day in the end of March and Ian Macmillan's poem, the thank you, if you can remember that. I'm not going to ask you to recite it, well, not this time, but those words that he wrote, did they resonate with you? What did you feel when you read the words?
It's quite easy to forget all the challenges we face, all the ups and downs. And I think it really resonated with me that it's truly is a thank you to everyone, every single member of our research teams, right up from all of our admin staff, our lab staff, everyone who works in, quality assurance, right through to the delivery teams who've been on the front line. And of course, our volunteers who have participated, and our patient contributors who have been on the other side.
Anything you'd like to say to those in the broader team, not just our little team, but across, the whole organisation?
A plug for research volunteers. If anyone can think of any areas in which research volunteers would be of benefit to the team, or any areas in which you think research volunteers would like to learn more about within your specific area, then do let me know, because that is what we'll be working on in the upcoming months.
So is PPEI in good shape for the future, for the coming months and years?
Oh yes. Very exciting things to come. So with the launch of the Research Hub, which will act as a central repository for participation opportunities, but also involvement opportunities and engagement